չեն հանգեցրել հայ ռազմագերիների ազատ արձակմանը։ Թեև միջազգային պետության հայտնի գրեթե բոլոր խաղաղության համաձայնագրերը հանգեցրել են առաջին հերթին հենց ռազմագերիների ազատ արձակմանը, Ադրբեջանը հետևողականորեն խուսափում է դրանից։
The ongoing peace negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan do not address the humanitarian dimension of this conflict. They have not resulted in the release of the Armenian political prisoners. Yet almost every peace agreement in modern history has begun with the release of prisoners of war. Azerbaijan has consistently refused to do so.
Ինչպես հայրս է ասել, այս դատավարությունը ուղղված է Հայաստանի Հանրապետության դեմ։ Հետևաբար Բաքվում պահվող հայ ռազմագերիները այսօր Ադրբեջանի կողմից օգտագործում են Հայաստանի դեմ։ Այս հանգամանքը լրջորեն հարցականի տակ է դնում իրական խաղաղության հանդեպ Ադրբեջանի հանձնառությունը։
As my father has stated, these trials are not only directed against him personally, they are directed against the Republic of Armenia itself. The Armenian prisoners currently held in Baku are being used as instruments of political pressure against Armenia. This reality raises serious questions about Azerbaijan's genuine commitment to achieving a real and lasting peace.
Հարգելի գործընկերներ, Եվս մեկ անգամ շնորհակալություն հայտնելով այս հնարավորության համար, խնդրում եմ անել հնարավորը նպաստելու Ադրբեջանում պահվող հայ ռազմագերիների ազատ արձակմանը։
Dear colleagues, once again, I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I respectfully ask you to do everything within your power to contribute to the release of the Armenian political prisoners held in Azerbaijan.
Հաշվի առնելով Եվրոպական միության ներգրավվածությանն ու հերահար նպատակների մեր տարածաշրջանում, ես լիահույս եմ, որ քաղաքական կամքի առկայության պարագայում Եվրոպական միության գործադիր իշխանությունը կարող է Ադրբեջանի վրա իրական ճնշում գործադրել այս հարցով։
Considering the European Union's engagement and long-term interest in our region, I remain hopeful that with sufficient political will, the executive institutions of the European Union can exert meaningful and effective pressure on Azerbaijan to resolve this humanitarian issue.
Մեր տանը հորս սպասում է մայրս, քույրս և հայրս թողնիկները։ Վերջիններից պատկերացումներ աշխարհի վերաբերյալ նրանց թույլ չի տալիս հասկանալ, թե ինչու իրենց պապիկին իրենց հետ չէ։
At home, my mother, my sister, my brother, and his grandchildren are waiting for my father. His grandchildren are still too young to understand why their grandfather is not with them.
Մի քանի օր առաջ աղջկաս ծնունդն էր։ Նրա համար ծննդյան լավագույն նվերը պապիկի զանգն էր։ Երբ հարցրեցին, թե ինչ նվեր է ուզում, ասաց, որ ուզում է պապիկը վերադառնատուն։
A few days ago, it was my daughter's birthday. For her, the greatest gift she could receive was a phone call from her grandfather. When I asked her what she wanted as a birthday present, she simply answered, "I want my grandfather to come home."
I think it would be better to have finished these discussions in this conference among the speakers first, with the Mr. Shikanian testimony. And I was about to ask you a question, but I received the response at the very end. I was about to ask you if there are any other family members. It's very obvious there are. There is wife, other children, and grandchildren as well. If I understood correctly, there was 3 times or 4 times just for conversation. Is that what it was? You don't want to answer if you can.
Անսական 3-4 կապված է այդ ամիս ինչքանից չեմ կարող ասել։
There is no such a regular number of communications. It can be per month, full course per month. It depends on the circumstances and the context.
And what was the specific charge for which supposedly he was found guilty?
It has legal component. I'll try to address it. So first, we have not received the full judgment. We only have the extract of the judgment, which does not give us a possibility to understand the reasoning for the evidence which is supposedly relied by domestic courts. But overall, the core of the charge is formation of armed group, participation in armed group, terrorism, illegal border crossing. So Arta Republic is treated as unlawful armed formation, and any decision, any activity within this formation is equated to terrorism or other related grave crime.
Okay, thanks. Now, waiting for my colleague and co-host of this event, Madam Lexman, we have some time and maybe we can take advantage of that. If anyone wants to take the floor, maybe raise a question, a concern, or just views, feel more than free to comment. Let's have the first round, maybe 3 or 4. All right. Please make it as short as possible, but certainly no more than 2 minutes. Let's start with the lady first. Would you tell us your name as well?
Yes. Hello, my name is Armenia, and I am a member of Armenian community and living in Brussels and following all the situation very closely. And first of all, thank you very much for organizing this conference and keeping the question under the radar all the time. It's very, very important. And I have a question for you, Mr. Mavridis. Yes, as an MEP, of course, the European Parliament has repeatedly adopted resolutions calling for the immediate release of Armenian hostages, political prisoners in Baku, and stronger EU engagement. But what explains? So the question is, what explains the gap between the European Parliament calling, having this clear position on Armenian political prisoners and the relatively limited action taken by the European Commission? And of course, the second question is, how can Parliament convert its political clear position to make some pressure to keep this question under the priority of EU-Azerbaijan relations? Thank you.
Very good. Very good answer. Gentlemen?
Thank you very much. I will make your task easier because it's a complex question that I'm going to pose now. I'm Lurcher. I'm a European Commission Type A expert and member of the European Commission Expert Group for Implementation of EU Anti-Torture Regulation. And for the last 25 years, I work on human rights and torture-related issues. And since 2011, I work on Azerbaijan also. And for just being, I don't want to elaborate more on issues related to torture specifics because we have a relative of a person who is imprisoned in the country, and it's unethical to go much deeper. But I want to bring a quote from the Council of Europe Committee on Prevention of Torture, which says, "Torture in Azerbaijani prisons is systemic, systematic, and endemic." And this is the Council of Europe. Systemic, systematic, and endemic. Endemic. So that's on the main page of Council of Europe CPT, and basically we have many evidences like this book, and we can very clearly claim, when I say we, many groups that work with prisoners of war, and especially
worked with them. We have not a single prisoner of war who have returned to Armenia who wasn't tortured. All of them, with no exceptions. Some were light beatings or beatings, others were even very severe torture. So, but there was not a single case that any of the prisoners who returned to Armenia was not a victim of torture. So, just this for the record, for your message. Thank you.
We appreciate your contribution. Who wants to be the next one? I think that the young lady in the back wanted first hand.
Thank you so much. Thank you for organizing this conference. My name is Sofia Shevchenko. I used to be a trainee in the European Parliament, and right now I'm very interested in the topic. I was in Armenia last month. I have lots of friends there. And I want to touch upon a subject that hasn't been discussed yet today, but I think it's also very important. On my trip last month, I visited the town of Goris, which is very close to the border with Azerbaijan. I talked to the community there, and people are telling me that a lot of young people are going away from border towns, going to Yerevan, going to the capital, or going even away from Armenia, because they don't have a certainty that they can start a life there, build businesses there, because there's still a lot of uncertainty that this region will not be affected in the future, might also maybe be annexed. There are people who are afraid that Azerbaijan wants to have a border with Turkey, and that this is basically the region that will be affected first. So, of course, it's important to talk about the release of the prisoners, but how is the European Union, the Parliament, together with your other institutions, gonna work on the future and remain, have this peace be installed for a long time, so there is no impact for the regions bordering Azerbaijan, and that people can have a certainty that they can build businesses alive there and not go away from their home. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Who wants to be the next one? I saw a couple of hands, more than a couple of hands. The young man back, yes? Younger than me.
Yes, but my question has to do with the ECHR, European Court of Human Rights. I suppose the next step, now that the sentences have been handed out to the hostages in Baku, the next step would be the European Court of Human Rights. And is there, I presume the European Court of Human Rights will overturn the verdicts, but is there any chance of that being enforced in Azerbaijan?
Thanks. Let's take one more. Yes? The young lady. Could you tell us your name, please?
I am Filia Khachedran. I am a member of Armenian Society in Brussels. I am a medical doctor, not a medical person. I would like to say, first of all, thank you very much for organizing this one. I am participating second time. Last year it was a small meeting, but we hope that something will change. Sorry, but nothing changed in practice. But today, thank you very much to Mr. Papashvili for pointing a lot of things that should be implemented. And also, thank you very much to Mr. Delfkamp that you said that it is a genocide, really genocide in Azov. Thank you for it. But also I would like to mention not only our prisoners issue, but also about Armenian heritage there. You know what happened there, and no UNESCO, no. And I'm very sorry for telling it that recently Madame Ursula von der Leyen visited Azerbaijan and said that Azerbaijan is a very reliable partner for gas provider. So, how, I'm not sure that really implementation, as Mr. what she said. It will be very easy. Sorry to read it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else who wants to one more talk? Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Sam. I'm a journalist from Armenia. I also wanted to ask you about the recent visit of Ursula von der Leyen to Azerbaijan. When she was there on July 2nd, she praised Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev for the peace efforts, and she also talked about Azerbaijan being a very reliable partner. But she skipped talking about human rights issues in Azerbaijan overall, and of course nothing about the Armenian prisoners, not even Azerbaijani activists or journalists who are currently in prison there. So as we see, there is like a very big difference between European Parliament stance and the European Commission. Just anyone who wants to comment on that, thank you.
I don't know if anyone of the MEPs was still present or the senator wants to comment. Or perhaps if no one from the MEPs or the senator, then I'll try to give a short response to the question, which was not the only one, which was directed towards me, and then maybe some of the panelists. I want to comment on some of the questions. I would start with one of the questions which was towards the end. The wording I used myself, if you listen to me here in the European Parliament, whenever I have the chance to talk to Madam von der Leyen or perhaps Madam Kallas or other commissioners, I can reassure you that it is much more harsh than the wording you are using. I've been around for 12 years. This is my third term. I cannot take it anymore. I cannot accept all this hypocrisy anymore. That's why I abandoned the diplomatic language, and perhaps that has even a political cost on me. That's not something to discuss now. As far as the European Parliament, though, position and what we might do next, how do we go to implement perhaps some of our resolutions, and one point regarding the International Criminal Court, for which I do have some experience, even though I'm not a lawyer. I'm a finance person. I'm coming from the academic world. I'm going to read paragraph 8, which was the last. It's very short, it's just one sentence, from the last resolution of the European Parliament to understand how much we can reach as European Parliament when it comes to matters concerning foreign affairs. We, the European Parliament, instruct the President, our President, Madame Metsola, to forward this resolution to the Council, the Commission, the Vice President, High Representative, the Member States and the Presidents, governments, and parliaments of Armenia and Azerbaijan. So in a way, the further we can get was once we have resolutions such as this one, which I repeat was almost unanimously voted for. We inform, as far as our political positions, our EU institutions, governments and parliaments. We cannot impose or implement our political decisions. And last comment, regarding the International Criminal Court, I do believe that I have no doubt that there is a case. The question is, how do you go about taking into consideration that, of course, we do have some legal experts here, very profound legal experts. How do you go about taking into consideration that Azerbaijan is a country that does not co-sign the Charter of International Criminal Court. And coming from Cyprus myself, I can reassure you that I have always been possessed with a profound and pathetic understanding of the pain of displacement, the threat of regional aggression, and the vital importance of historical justice. In 1974, I was myself a victim of such an aggression by the Turkish invasion in Cyprus, and I'm a refugee kid of that era. So all I can promise you before I give the floor to anyone who wants to talk is that personally, you have my commitment and my party and my political group that as far as us, you will never be alone. That's all I can promise. Yes, Simon?
Yeah, I would like to respond to maybe 3 questions. One about the European courts and how we can make Azerbaijan comply. Azerbaijan is one of the countries, member states of the Council of Europe, which has probably one of the worst records of enforcement of judgments. However, there have been situations where Azerbaijan has been forced to enforce judgments, and one of those situations involves a case called Ilgar Mamedov versus Azerbaijan. That was a case that related to a politically motivated imprisonment of a political opposition leader back in 2013 or 14, either 13 or 14. That's not important. What is important is that in this case, court issued a judgment and said that the person was in detention without proper justification as provided by the European Convention, and essentially asked Azerbaijan government to release him. And Azerbaijan refused to release him despite constant calls from the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. Committee of Ministers, as you know, is responsible for overseeing the enforcement of judgments. So what we did in that case was to initiate a campaign, and my organization led this effort, to start infringement proceedings under Article 46.4 of the European Convention against Azerbaijan. This was the first case of the kind when infringement proceedings were applied. And when they were initiated, this led to a release of Mr. Mamedov from jail, quashing of his criminal conviction, and he also received over 100,000 euro compensation from Azerbaijan. He eventually turned into a puppet opposition after all of this happened, but the fact is that Azerbaijan was somehow under the threat of consequences, meaning suspension of membership, to enforce the judgments. And same can be done in relation to the cases that we're discussing. First it's important to attain the judgments, and once the judgments have been attained, we can together create pressure on the Committee of Ministers to force Azerbaijan to comply. If Azerbaijan does not comply, there are measures that can be taken all the way to expulsion from this multilateral regional body. So there is a way. In terms of, Ursula von der Leyen praising and tapping Aliyev on his shoulders, this is unfortunate. But what is also more unfortunate is that EU continues to rely on fossil fuels from countries like Azerbaijan, and instead of putting taxpayers' money on accelerating transition to renewable, it funds projects like Southern Gas Corridor. It's a waste of money, and it's a dependency which is unnecessary and which is a security threat for the energy security of the EU. So this is deeply flawed and wrong, and this kind of project should not be undertaken in the first place, and people like Aliyev should not receive the kind of treatment they received from this Commission president. It's clear. On the question of the ICC, there are, I guess, from the non-lawyers questions that pertain to the jurisdiction of the court. This question has already been overcome by Armenia ratifying their own statutes, but also by Armenia filing the declaration under Article 12.3 of their own statutes and asking the ICC to extend its jurisdiction over the events that have taken place in Armenia, on the sovereign territory of Armenia, starting May 2021. My organization has documented multiple war crimes that have taken place on the territory of Armenia since the 2020 ceasefire, and again, relying on the jurisdiction of the court, jurisprudence of the court, the crime of forcible transfer falls under the jurisdiction of this court, even when it started on the territory that is outside the territorial jurisdictional scope of the court, but continues onto the territory of a member state. So, jurisdictional question is closed. What we collectively need to do now is to encourage friendly states, first of all European states, to make a collective state party referral to the ICC, putting pressure, practical pressure, on the prosecutor to initiate investigation into multiple allegations of crimes, including war crimes and crimes against humanity, that Azerbaijan has committed since May 2021. So we have a jurisdiction, we need a little bit of mobilization of the political will, and then we can trigger this investigation. Thank you.
Anyone else wants to comment from the panelists? Yes.
I'll provide a short comment about ECHR. Yes, we intend to take those cases to the European Court. Interesting and telling fact is that as of this moment we have a dozen completed cases against Azerbaijan where grave human rights violations were found by the court: torture, abduction, forced disappearances, intentional deliberate killings. And indeed, Azerbaijan fails to enforce the judgment, and trivially they fail to make the payment to the victims or their lawyers as defined by the court. And a rich country with budget refuses to make the payment as decided by the court, which relate to protection of ethnic Armenians. So we consider this as a continuation of state policy, discriminatory policy, racial discriminatory policy against Armenia. So it's a small manifestation, but it still shows the reluctance of the state to enforce a judgment which is beneficial to ethnic Armenian. But luckily, after the reform of the court through the Protocol 14, the enforcement mechanism is strengthened. The initial supervision is done by the political organ, committee of ministers, and when there is a deliberate refusal to enforce the judgment, there is a possibility of having these infringement proceedings opened. And whenever the court would establish deliberate refusal, then this is a ground for sanctioning the country within the Council of Europe. So I think if this state policy continues, then we have quite sound, strong grounds to initiate infringement proceedings.
Very nice. I'd like to welcome my colleague, Miriam Lexman. Very beginning, I made an introduction. I don't need to make an introduction again. Maybe she, let's do, we have a few minutes. Are you going to stay until 3:30? Yes, right back. Sure. Okay. Anyone else who wants to take the floor? percentage. Okay. Should I summarize the questions myself? A couple of questions were directed towards me, and I will summarize them in the following way. We appreciate, very appreciate, what the European Parliament has done with 2 resolutions, and I would add to that with the determinant contribution of the standard rapporteur for Armenia. And with all those demands that we have, and then what do we do next? How do we go to implement those? How do we put pressure on other institutions, especially namely with regards to Madam von der Leyen, who with public statements, she appears to have prioritized the geopolitical, the energy relations with Azerbaijan. That was one. Another one was whether we can play some key role in pushing further the atrocities and this miscarriage of service, justice against the Armenian people in health hostages. We bring the case on the International Criminal Court, especially with regards to the first part, or anything else you might comment. We will have to hear you.
Thank you very much. One of the reasons why I couldn't be with you, because we had lots of votes and different committee meetings. It's very packed today because we are finishing practically this week and we'll have a recess. But one of the reasons why I couldn't be with you was that in INTA, which is the International Trade Committee, we were discussing how we can help Armenia with to supplement the export opportunities we lost vis-à-vis Russia, or how to respond to the coercion from the Russian Federation, where we were trying to find ways how to open the European markets for your companies in order to support Armenia in this struggle, and also, I mean, that could also, I would say, improve the relation or strengthen the relation between EU and Armenia, which obviously both sides are happy about, but not about the reasons what happened and the coercion from the Russian side. So the European Union is obviously taking seriously the will of the citizens of Armenia to build closer ties with the Union, and we are finding ways. Of course, it's to a certain extent it's not easy from different reasons, and I don't want to explain it, but you all know the reasons. But why we are here today is practically to bring up a voice on the political prisoners held in Azerbaijan, people from Nagorno-Karabakh, and we don't want these people to be forgotten. And of course, it's our moral duty to do our utmost to make these people free. And the question was very right. I mean, how, and unfortunately I see it myself, that sometimes the geopolitical gains and priorities and energy needs and the diversification from Russia, which obviously in this case doesn't seem to be diversification, and also if diversification not in the right direction, when it comes to Azerbaijan. And unfortunately, I also regret that the European Union is not stronger here, because I think we have, or the EU has done the wrong way, that we practically, because of our interests and energy interests, we have closed eyes on the political prisoners issue, and we could have done the opposite. We could have strengthened the position of the European Union through our cooperation with Azerbaijan when it comes to energy income, and thus make pressure on the government to release the political prisoners. I come from Slovakia, where there are a couple of people following these cases very closely. I mean, also the Slovak parliament, I mean, they were sending letters to the Azerbaijani government requesting the free of the political prisoners. I will keep bringing this issue up here. And if I see any opportunity, obviously I will try to make sure that the opportunity is used. Of course, I mean, this has to be done in a close cooperation with Armenia, and maybe the strategic thinking should be somewhere behind. Unfortunately, Ursula von der Leyen, while visiting Armenia, did not use the opportunity in order to be the strong voice against this breach of international human rights laws which are happening in Azerbaijan. So maybe this is what my main message is, that cooperation, coordination of steps, and obviously the pressure we need to keep, hopefully with a success in the future, and I hope that this will be as soon as possible. I come from Slovakia. You know that we had in my family political prisoners during the communist time, and that's why I'm motivated very strongly to do my utmost to make sure that these people will be free. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, you have the floor now.
Thank you. My name is Bernardo. I'm an activist and journalist following these questions since a long time. I met a few people here in Stepanakert before the blockade. You are saying, Ms. Lexman, that Ms. von der Leyen could use the energy deals with Azerbaijan to work towards more justice and peace. The problem is that she could do that in July 2022, before, during the blockade. She did not. Everybody warned her. It will be a blockade and then an ethnic cleansing. She did not listen. She is now doing it again, going to Baku, seeing Mr. Aliyev, and saying that he is a reliable partner. We all know that he is not a reliable partner. My question is then, what is the EPP group, the group of this von der Leyen, doing? It was her position in 22. We are now in 26. Excuse me to be frank, but what are you doing in 4 years' time if she does not move for a millimeter? Excuse me to be frank. That's my question.
Well, as you know, the European Parliament is only a supplementary voice in foreign policy. We don't have a mandate to do foreign policy of the European Union. This mandate lies with the member states. So maybe this question should go to the member states, because we in the European Parliament, as you could read in the resolutions, we are very clear. And yes, it's true that there is maybe should be pressure from the European Parliament, but it's very difficult to make pressure from the European Parliament since we don't have the decision-making power. Who has it is the member states. If there will be a couple of member states who raise this question, that would lead to a change of the position for at least a millimeter, as you described. I mean, and also, I mean, you can imagine that trying to deal with so many issues, and unfortunately for many member states, the energy security is a priority, and that's why, unfortunately, and I'm not saying this is a right answer, but that's why they are getting sometimes human rights. And this is happening often on many different aspects, unfortunately, in the European Parliament, in the member states. We are often, or the European institutions are often talking about human rights, but the deeds are sometimes deviating from the virtues.
Yes, Gaspar, you have the floor.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you, Mr. Maurice, for this opportunity. I want just to note 2 points. The first one is the hypocrisy of the EU executive, and especially of the PAS and of Mrs. von der Leyen. There are resolutions of the European Parliament where it's mentioned that
Azeri gas, in reality, is not Azeri gas, it's Russian gas. European Union has put sanctions on Russia, and now we are paying more money to Azerbaijan to have this Russian gas, which would come directly, would be cheaper, and we are sending to Putin more money. This is a very great hypocrisy. You did right, the European Parliament, I said earlier also, it's honoring its mission, but it seems that the EU continues to be hypocrite and to try to show that they are dead. The second point is that how come some days after the announcement, the last announcement of Mr. Aliyev, during the summit in Yerevan, that he stops any collaboration with the European Parliament, because the European Parliament is biased than whatever all the other wordings that he used. And how come the President of the Commission goes to Baku and praises Aliyev when the only elected party by the people of Europe is considered by the President Aliyev as that not worth to collaborate, and on the other hand, the European Union executive says Aliyev is a very reliable partner. Those are things that not only myself, maybe I can be considered not objective because I'm Armenian. I imagine that many people in Europe cannot understand how. And I'll give you an example. I don't know if anyone of you work together in that delegation with Mr. Aristev that visited Baku and Yerevan. You all know when there is an official meeting, when the cameras are there, people speak about the weather, how is the city, etc. They don't speak important substances. And what did Aliyev? As soon as they started, he has in front of him McAllister and 6 or 7 people from the AFET committee, and he said, you are more biased than the Armenian parliament. You are having resolutions only against us, and you are not writing yourself those resolutions, and those resolutions are written by the lobbyists of Europe, of the Armenian lobbyists in Brussels. Probably. Of course, I immediately responded that it's not understandable. People there were being prime minister, etc. They are not puppets there. But such a person, how can be considered reliable and good partner? For us, it continues to be ununderstandable. Sorry for my intervention, but on the other hand, I praise and I am very grateful as President of the European Armenian National Committee of all Armenians in Europe, 2 million Europeans of Armenian origin, for the European Parliament, and for you personally, Mr. Excellency, but on the other hand, the stance of the European Executive is not understandable for Central.
Very well. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. This has been a very interesting discussion, presentation. I'd like to thank all the panelists for their contribution. To me, it was a learning experience. Of course, I'd like to thank my co-host, Madam Miriam Lexman, Kaspar, of course, and Laszlo. I can reassure you that those of us and also the cross-sectional support from all political groups, including the non-script, we are almost unanimously supporting these resolutions, and we are driven only, especially in Parliament, we are driven by our values and faith in justice, and not by any special group interest. So the reason why we are here, because we believe in the same values. With that word, I actually assure you that we can rely on us as much as we can. And it's better to have a frank discussion like we did, instead of raising false expectations. Just a word of compassion. Aliyev regime, and the relation and position of Madam von der Leyen is not the only one. Same thing in other words with Mr. Erdogan. But that is another case and another conference. I'd like to thank you for your presentation. And once again, this was made possible because of the cooperation between the two of us, the leading inspiration and organization by Gaspar Karabedian and his team, and also the very good experts on the time. Thank you, and please.